Calaroga Shark Media. Hello and welcome to Murder Weekly. This episode is titled, A Tree Grows in Detroit.
Darnell was found lifeless in the early hours, his future cut short over a misunderstanding. The alley, a place where Darnell had often taken his breaks, sharing jokes and aspirations with anyone who would listen, was now a somber tableau. His body was discovered in the early hours, an untimely end to what should have been just another night. The remnants of a Detroit Grills uniform clung to him, the name tag bearing Darnell, a poignant reminder of the mundane reality from which a senseless act of violence had plucked him. Around him, the everyday signs of life, discarded wrappers, a lone, forgotten employee cap caught on a nearby fence, seemed to mock the gravity of the loss. A small, crumpled photo lay close to his hand, his mother, a snapshot of happier times. Perhaps a memento he carried to remind him of why he worked so hard, of the dreams he was chasing. The scene was devoid of the chaos that often accompanies discovery. There was only the profound silence of a world momentarily paused in respect and the slow, inevitable approach of dawn. As the police cordoned off the area, the murmur of onlookers began to swell. "Another one, huh?" Officer Hayes remarked, his tone laced with indifference as he sipped his coffee, his eyes barely glancing over the crime scene. "Yeah," Officer Miller responded with a shrug, flipping through notes on his clipboard with a detached air. "Just another dispute that got out of hand, I guess. You know how it is around here." Marcus, a local who had traded the rebellious streak of his youth for the steady resolve of community advocacy, felt the loss deeply. Darnell wasn't just a face in the neighborhood, he was a symbol of potential. The slow churn of police wheels, bogged down by cases deemed more pressing by whoever decided such things, did little to quench the thirst for justice swelling within the community. With few willing to step into the breach, Marcus took it upon himself to uncover the truth. The streets whispered of a simple yet fatal disagreement that had spiraled out of control, a dispute born out of the heated exchanges that sometimes flared up in the tight-knit quarters of Detroit Grills. Armed with little more than his resolve and a deep-seated knowledge of the neighborhood, Marcus began retracing Darnell's last steps. Conversations, half-remembered and reluctantly shared, painted a picture of a verbal altercation turned deadly, a moment's anger leading to irreversible consequences. Under the flickering streetlight of Jefferson Avenue, Marcus found himself standing in front of Calvin's auto body, the scent of motor oil and metal heavy in the air. Calvin, a man whose stature was as commanding as his presence, was known not just for his unparalleled skill with engines, but also for his deep-rooted connections within the community. His hands, always stained with the evidence of his labor, were a testament to his dedication to both his craft and the neighborhood. Calvin would be the one to know. "Marcus," Calvin acknowledged, his tone carrying the weight of unspoken conversations. "I need to talk to you about Darnell," Marcus started, his voice steady despite the turbulence of emotions beneath. "There's talk about a confrontation gone bad. Something about unpaid debts escalating. You know anything about that?" Calvin paused, leaning against the car with a sigh. The shop, usually a hub of noise and activity, felt oppressively quiet. "Yeah, I heard about that mess. Darnell and Tony were at it again over some foolishness. Darnell owed him, sure, but it was nothing that couldn't have been settled without fists or worse." "Tony?" Marcus probed, the name a new piece in a complex puzzle. "Tony's got a short fuse, but murder?" Calvin shrugged, a gesture heavy with the complexities of human nature and the harsh realities of street life. "Tony's always been quick to anger and quicker to act. We all knew that. But Darnell, he didn't deserve what happened. It was just talk that went too far." Marcus found himself standing outside a rundown basketball court. This was Tony's domain, a place where he reigned supreme, not just in sport, but in the unspoken hierarchies of street credibility and respect. The air was tense, charged with the anticipation of confrontation as Marcus approached. Tony was there, as expected, dominating the game with his usual blend of agility and sheer force. At Marcus's approach, the game came to an abrupt halt, the ball forgotten as all eyes turned to the unfolding scene. Tony, sweat glistening on his brow, met Marcus's gaze with a defiant stare. "Tony, we need to talk, now!" Marcus's voice was firm, brooking no argument. The two men stepped away from the court, the space between them charged with a palpable intensity. "This about Darnell?" Tony asked, his tone defensive yet laced with a hint of something else. Regret, perhaps, or guilt. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Yes, Darnell. Word on the street is you had a part in it over some unpaid debts." Tony's reaction was immediate, his anger flaring. "You think I killed him? Over money?" He shook his head, the lines of his face hardening. "Darnell was my boy. Yeah, he owed me cash, but that was nothing. He needed that money for his mom, man. She's sick, needed medicine. What kind of monster do you think I am?" The question hung between them, heavy with the weight of unspoken accusations and the grief of a community in mourning. Marcus studied Tony, searching for any sign of deceit, but found only sincerity and frustration in his eyes. "Well, if it wasn't you, then who was it?" Marcus pressed, the need for answers driving him forward. Tony's gaze shifted, looking past Marcus to the streets that had raised them, streets that now seemed to hold more shadows than light. "Who does everything that wrecks this neighborhood?" Days turned into nights as Marcus delved deeper, his investigation taking him from the dimly lit corners of neighborhood bars to the quiet, desperate rows of houses that lined the streets of Jefferson Avenue. He spoke with friends and strangers alike, piecing together the fragments of Darnell's last days. It was during one of these conversations, a chance encounter with an old friend of Darnell's named Jasmine, that the breakthrough came. Jasmine, a quiet observer of the neighborhood's ebb and flow, shared a crucial piece of information that had gone unnoticed in the chaos following Darnell's death. Darnell had been involved in a heated argument not just with Tony, but with a local gang known for their ruthless hold on the area, over a protection fee that Darnell had refused to pay, a bold move that had ultimately cost Darnell his life. Armed with this new knowledge, Marcus approached the authorities once again, this time with evidence that couldn't be ignored. In honor of Darnell, whose dreams and ambitions had been a beacon of hope, the locals decided to dedicate a park in his name, transforming a once-neglected space into a symbol of renewal and memory. At the center stood a newly planted tree, a living tribute to Darnell, its branches reaching towards the sky as if in pursuit of the dreams he once held.
Murder Weekly is a Calaroga Shark Media production, written and hosted by Aidan I. Flanagan, produced by Mark Francis, executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. Calaroga Shark Media.